Chapter 15 to 16. As he grumbled about Gilgamesh's unreliability, Shirou carefully positioned himself in ambush, his entire focus trained on the Matu residence. October 3rd, 1993, Sunday, around 3 p.m. A black Honda Accord approached slowly from a distance, and an old man with a cane emerged from the gates of the Matu mansion. As soon as Shirou saw this old man with a cane, he fixated all of his attention on him. Before setting up his ambush, Shirou used concealment in an attempt to minimize his presence as much as possible. In theory, there should be no possibility of being discovered, but Shirou was not sure how effective it actually was in practice. Since the information about Sakura came from Gilgamesh, it is likely that he knew that Shirou was lying in ambush nearby. However, since Gilgamesh was willing to provide the information to Shirou, it seems that he does not plan to interfere with Shirou's actions, right?
No.
According to the Type Moon setting, Gilgamesh has a unique set of values that is different from that of ordinary people, making it difficult to understand his actions using an ordinary person's mindset. However, Shirou was unable to come up with any corresponding countermeasures. All he could do was do his best and leave the rest to fate. Shirou's gaze was fixed on the black Honda Accord, and using the clairvoyance inherited from a Saint Graph, he was able to almost immediately see the situation inside the car. It appeared that Rin Tosaka was not present, and Sakura and her mother were sitting in the back seat while Tokiomi Tosaka sat in the front passenger seat. The driver was a young man with distinctive blue hair and a face that resembled a grown-up version of Shinji Matu. It was likely that he was the current head of the Matu household, Matu Byakuya. And in fact, Shirou had not guessed wrong. That man was indeed Matu Byakuya. The car arrived at the Matu mansion, and Matu Byakuya asked the 3 members of the Tosaka family to get out of the car. He then stood behind Matuzoken and appeared to be completely allowing him to do as he pleased. "It's been a long time," Tosaka family head Matuzoken said with a creepy smile. "It's been a long time," the old head of the Matu family, Tokiomi replied with a graceful smile. "Is that Sakura? The imaginary numbers is truly a good seed. Unlike the offspring of our Matu family, whose talents have withered, we have no choice but to request the succession of a child from the Tosaka family head Matuzoken side, appearing troubled by the lack of competitiveness of the Matu family offspring. But this might also be the root of the Tosaka family head's worries. 2 excellent offspring, but the Tosaka family's Magic Crest can only shelter one, and the other has a very high possibility of being sealed by the Clock Tower's bigwigs with a sealing designation, right? After all, it is such an excellent talent. And being sealed with a sealing designation as though being protected feels like being pickled in formaldehyde. Hee. Matuzoken let out a creepy laugh. "This is indeed my worry, Matu family head," Tokiomi replied calmly and gracefully. "Then I ask again, as the head of the Tosaka family, will you, the Matu family, truly nurture my daughter, Tosaka Sakura, as the successor?" "This is of course," Matuzoken laughed. "Without an excellent successor, the Matu family will only continuously weaken and eventually disappear in the river of history. This is the reason we came here to request it. The Matu family will naturally nurture this child as the successor. It's just that the Matu family's magic attribute is water, so the Matu family needs to make some changes to this child's magic attribute. Of course, since it is being nurtured as a successor, there will be some pain during this change, but it will definitely be beneficial for her. And for the sake of this child's life and future, the Tosaka family head believes that you will be able to accept it. May I ask, what kind of changes will be made?" Tosaka Aoi asked Matuzoken as she gently patted the head of crying Sakura. Matuzoken remained silent and turned to Tokiomi, inviting him to speak on the matter.
Aoi.
Tokiomi scolded. Aoi hesitated for a moment before ultimately remaining silent. "I apologize, my wife was just worried." "I'm sorry, Matu family head," said Tokiomi, bowing apologetically. No, it's okay. Lady Aoi is not from a Magus family, so she doesn't understand our customs." "As an old man, I can understand that," Matuzoken said with a laugh. Tokiomi nodded gratefully. Among Magus, it was an unspoken rule that if an outsider tried to learn their secrets, it was considered a declaration of mutual extermination. This was the way of the Magus. Tokiomi looked at Aoi, who knew it was time. She moistened her lips and patted Sakura's shoulder, saying, "Sakura, go." "Liar," Sakura said, standing in place, tears streaming down her face. In a soft and gentle voice, she continued, "Mom is a liar." Aoi's body shook and her heart ached at her daughter's words. Tokiomi turned to Sakura and crouched down in front of her, saying, "Sakura, I've made a decision. You are no longer a member of the Tosaka family. Instead, you will join the Matu family and be known as Matu Sakura from now on." Cruel, heartless. A father speaking such cruel words to his children. In an instant, Sakura felt a suffocating pain. Her own parents had abandoned her. Tokiomi felt a pang of pain as he saw the hurt in his daughter's eyes. However, he knew that his decision was necessary for her future and that the pain he was causing her was insignificant in comparison. Both of Tokiomi's daughters were exceptionally talented, but the Tosaka family only had one magic crest, which could only protect one of them. If the other daughter displayed her magical aptitude, she would likely be targeted by the clock tower and subjected to the sealing designation, which was a cruel form of imprisonment for talented magi or those who had violated certain taboos. These individuals were confined and treated like specimens in a jar of formalin for the rest of their lives, which was considered worse than death by many magi who saw magic as their life's work. Tokiomi couldn't even begin to imagine the excruciating pain of such torture, and he didn't want his daughter to have to endure it. Both Rin, with her 5-element magic attribute, and Sakura, with her imaginary attribute, would be targeted by the clock tower. However, the Tosaka family's magic crest could only protect one of them, so he had to make a difficult decision. Tokiomi loved both of his daughters equally, but he knew that he might not return from the battlefield. Therefore, when considering the future of his family and the succession of the Magic Crest, he believed that Rin, with her outgoing personality and strong will, was the best choice. It was a difficult decision, but one he had to make. Therefore, he chose Rin and abandoned Sakura.
No.
It couldn't be called abandonment. Tokiomi had already set Sakura on a path toward developing her magic abilities. He had done what he could to provide for her future and ensure her success as a magus. Initially, Tokiomi considered sending Sakura to the Edelfelt family in Finland, who were bitter enemies, but also related to them through kin. However, the Edelfelt family already had an heir, and the relationship between the two families had always been strained due to some problems. While sending Sakura there would protect her, it was likely that her life would be difficult and challenging. That was when the head of the Matu family approached Tokiomi and offered to adopt Sakura, promising to treat her as an heir and cultivate her magic abilities, as well as cooperate in the Fourth Holy Grail War. Tokiomi couldn't resist the temptation, and he believed that Sakura's life would be better with the Matu family, who were willing to invest in her future as an heir, rather than with a family that had a long-standing grudge against them. Most importantly, being adopted by the Matu family would allow Sakura to inherit their magic, which would be incredibly beneficial for her future as a magus. For these reasons, Tokiomi was happy to agree to the adoption. "You are no longer a member of the Tosaka family. Go, Matu Sakura," Tokiomi said to his child in a heartless and cruel tone that was difficult for him as a father to utter. Sakura's tears flowed endlessly as she took hesitant steps toward Matu Zoken. "Hee, good child. Grandpa will definitely take good care of you."
Hee.
Matu Zoken let out a creepy laugh. Tokiomi didn't think much of it and, after sending Sakura off, he and Aoi left in the car. "Dad, Mom." Sakura's words faltered and tears flowed like a river. She knew that from this moment on, her world no longer had a father and mother. "Come inside," Matu Zoken said, walking into the Matu courtyard. Matu Byakuya also took Sakura's hand and led her into the mansion. Sakura walked into the gloomy Matu mansion with hesitant steps, her body trembling with fear at the foreboding atmosphere. At this moment, Sakura remembered everything from her life at the Tosaka household. Her Western-style room, the stuffed dolls on her bed, the loving sister, a gentle mother, and a strict yet kind father. All of it was gone now. She passed through the large iron gate that closed behind her, saying goodbye to that warm world. "Let's take her inside first." Hee. Matu Zoken let out a delighted laugh, which, combined with the gloomy atmosphere of the Matu household, was unsettling. Matu Byakuya, who obediently followed orders, was even more rough and unsympathetic, lacking any sense of consideration or warmth. In contrast to these new relatives, Sakura couldn't help but think of the place where she had lived for half a month. The aunt Sakura lives with is very kind and enthusiastic. She is different from Sakura's gentle and quiet mother, but she is energetic and shows her love for Sakura in a way that can sometimes come across as scolding. Despite this, she works hard to maintain the family and takes good care of Sakura, who left home and was feeling lost. It's clear that the aunt cares deeply for Sakura and wants the best for her. The uncle is also very kind. He is different from Sakura's elegant and steady father, but he is a busy man who follows his wife's lead at home and seems to lack masculinity at times. However, he is full of love for his family and is very reliable in critical moments, supporting the family like a pillar. He takes extra care of Sakura, who suddenly joined the family and has no history with them, and is always there to help her. The older brother is also very kind. He is different from Sakura's strong and extroverted sister, appearing cheerful but actually seeming melancholy and conflicted about something. Despite this, he immediately accepted Sakura into the family and showed her care and concern. Every night when he is half asleep, he holds Sakura a little worriedly, but it is not annoying. It seems that the older brother cares deeply for Sakura and wants to protect her. It's just that all of it. The moment when her father told her that her name was Matu Sakura, all of it was no longer related to her. What is her future in this gloomy Mato family? The iron gates of the Mato family swung shut with a loud bang, but Shirou didn't immediately take action. He waited for a moment before moving. As a demi-servant, Shirou's senses had been heightened by merging with the Saint Graph, allowing him to detect the presence of other servants. Fortunately, he sensed none within the Mato family. However, he couldn't be certain if the servant had been summoned elsewhere or if there was another reason for their absence. Regardless, Shirou knew it was best to be cautious. Thanks to the information he obtained from Korea using suggestion, Shirou knew that the walls of the Mato family's property only enclosed half of their land. The rest was protected by various magical defenses. The small grove of trees connected to the Mato family's back garden was not enclosed by walls, but rather guarded by various magical defenses. The grove was challenging for an ordinary magus to pass through, but Shirou had an advantage. Thanks to the information he obtained from Korea and his enhanced physical abilities as a demi-servant from merging with the Saint Graph, he had learned the mansion's layout and could navigate through the grove with ease.
Fizz. Damn.
It looks like it won't be so easy to sneak in anymore. Some of the layout have been changed, Shirou thought with a hint of resignation as he looked at the tree leaves that brushed against his forehead. As the sorcery ignited, a winged insect flew up and attacked Shirou the next moment. Trace on. Shirou's 27 magical circuits rapidly activated, supporting the power brought by the spiritual foundation. He waved his hand and used projection, instantly projecting a sword that pierced the brain of the winged insect with a sharp shush. But, wish, wish, wish. The rustling of the leaves sounded like a deafening gale tearing through the trees, whipping the branches into a frenzy. In the next moment, a swarm of insects emerged from the underbrush, their wings whirring as they rose up like a black curtain, blotting out the sun. The air buzzed with their frenetic energy, and the ground seemed to vibrate beneath their tiny feet. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Shirou had been exposed, and he knew he had to act fast. With a determined expression, he gritted his teeth and projected 2 long swords. He swung them wildly in front of him, using the E-rank physical strength of a servant to form a sword net that seemed impenetrable, slaying the incoming insects. With the same fierce determination, he charged ahead like a bull and broke into the Matu residence. Ha ha ha, which foolish soul has dared to disregard the magical rules and enter this old man's residence in broad daylight? Matu Zoken cackled, leaning on his cane as he walked out. As Shirou looked at the old man up close, he realized that Matu Zoken was an unusual and strange-looking person. Zoken was bald, with limbs as thin as a mummy's, deep-set eyes shining with a fierce light. He was hunched over and short, dressed in a dark blue and deep gray yukata and holding a wooden cane. From a distance of about 10 meters, Shirou could clearly smell the foul stench of corruption emanating from him. "Tell me, who are you?" Matu Zoken asked with a sinister smile, and behind him was a sea of insects resembling a black tide. It appeared that Matu Zoken hadn't noticed Shirou's servant aura due to him being a demi-servant with a physical body. However, Shirou paid no attention to Matu Zoken's question. Despite his frail appearance, Zoken was a genuine great magus, and in his prime, he was said to be a match for a servant. Shirou, as an inexperienced person, knew better than to underestimate this old man who had lived for centuries. In response to the old man's question, Shirou saw it as the perfect opportunity to launch a sneak attack. After all, an opportunity arises from the carelessness of one's enemies. With a swift wave of his hand, he summoned 3 long swords through projection and launched them towards Zoken with a swift shush. Ha! Projection. Such a basic magecraft is useless against this old man, Matu Zoken chuckled, remaining still as the sea of insects surrounding him engulfed Shirou's swords like a tidal wave. Futile effort. Matu Zoken chuckled, but his voice sounded very strange. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The swarm of insects around Matu Zoken acted like an army with a will of its own, effortlessly engulfing and consuming every sword that Shirou launched towards him. Relying on such meager means to invade my mansion? You're a fool to even try, Zoken declared, his eyes flashing with killing intent. The sea of insects around him acted as his left and right arms, surging and rolling towards Shirou with deadly force. Ignoring Matu Zoken's provocation, Shirou instead saw it as an opportunity to exploit his enemy's weaknesses. As a servant with the weakest level of power and no combat experience, and hailing from a civilized society governed by laws, Shirou knew that winning against a powerful opponent like Matu Zoken required a calm and calculated mind, rather than succumbing to anger and provocation. He understood that his best chance of success lay in seizing upon any openings in his enemy's defense and exploiting them to his advantage. Shirou couldn't understand why Matu Zoken would make the mistake of using provocation during a fight with his enemy. Perhaps age had made him more talkative, or maybe provocation was a part of his combat strategy, along with his magical research and family background. However, Shirou knew better than to make such a low-level mistake himself. He was not qualified to indulge in such luxuries. With his full attention devoted to the battle, Shirou remained intently focused on the task at hand. He understood that this was a necessary precondition for victory, especially as a novice with limited combat experience. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A swarm of insects swirled like a raging sea, trying to engulf Shirou. And at that moment, Shirou's eyes shone. Despite merging with the Saint Graph and inheriting all the abilities of the heroic spirit, Shirou's young body was unable to handle the sheer amount of knowledge he had acquired. The existence of legendary blades, in particular, proved to be overwhelming for him. Shirou knew that if he were to forcibly use projection, it would only result in his magic circuits reaching their limit, causing him to lose his combat power prematurely. He had to be strategic and selective in the blades he chose to project, making every strike count. As an inexperienced bird with no understanding of combat and the weakest attribute, Shirou could only project ordinary swords. Facing a great magus who had lived for centuries, victory seemed impossible. However, a mature mind and prior preparation can create a door to victory. Now, the key to unlocking that door was firmly in Shirou's grasp. Its name is